Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbler with your nightly review for Thursday, June 6th. It's 4:02 p.m. Eastern Time. My man, Jack Jones. Best voice ever. All right, change of plans. I'm a little rushed. I'm getting ready to pass out some scholarships at the local high school. I get to do that every year. Kind of fun. No China bashing today, instead Michelle Obama bashing coming up if you keep it where it is. I forgot this morning that it was the anniversary, of course, of D-Day. I love this man more and more with every passing year. If you can't see it, General Eisenhower, who was a tremendous president, as we've learned. 69 years ago today, D-Day. So I want to show you something at the end of the broadcast. So I'm going to rush through this. I apologize ahead of time. Dow Jones finished up 79 points. A big reversal. It was down 117, finished up 79 points to 15,040, up about 0.5%. S&P 500 up 0.8% to 1622. It was down below 1600 this morning, which meant intraday the S&P had corrected a little over 5% from the peak of 1687 intraday. NASDAQ finished up 0.7%, gold 1411, oil 94.65. The 10-year Treasury actually traded below 2%, but finished today at 2.08%. There has just been a lot of volatility the past few weeks, but it is all about tomorrow's jobs report. Most people are looking for 155 to 165,000 in non-farm payroll. Poor news. It keeps the Fed's printing press going, but it also means the recovery is more modest. As the Fed's beige book said yesterday. And if it was more modest, that could mean just 2% growth in the second half, not the hoped for 2.5% to 3% growth. So that would mean the Fed wouldn't be likely to begin tapering its $85 billion a month bond buying program under that scenario, but earnings expectations may then be too optimistic. After all, the current forecast is for 13% year-over-year earnings growth in the fourth quarter. So keep that in mind. Tokyo's Nikkei closed below 13,000 at 12,904, down 0.9%. It is down over 19% from the peak in just a little over 2 weeks. Below 13,000 for the first time since early April. As I said yesterday, a lot of small investors were just starting to get back into the Tokyo market right at the peak. London down 1.3%, Paris down 1%, Frankfurt down 1.2%, Milan down 2.6%. The European Central Bank left interest rates unchanged. ECB President Mario Draghi said, quote, Euro area economic activity should stabilize and recover in the course of the year, albeit at a subdued pace. ECB cut its outlook for the Eurozone economy to a contraction of 0.6% for the full year. Well, the buzzword these days is big data. Meta data. And today we might have had another classic example of my adage, wait 24 hours or even just 12 hours. So the story first broke that the National Security Agency is currently collecting the telephone records of millions of U.S. customers of Verizon under a top secret court order, according to Britain's Guardian newspaper. The order was granted by the Secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court on April 25th and was good until July 19th. The order requires Verizon, one of the nation's largest telecommunications companies, on an ongoing daily basis to give the NSA information on all telephone calls in its systems, both within the U.S. and between the U.S. and other countries. The Guardian newspaper said the document, a copy of which it had obtained, shows for the first time that under the Obama administration and the communication records, I apologize, for the first time that under the Obama administration, the communication records of millions of U.S. citizens were being collected indiscriminately and in bulk, regardless of whether they were suspected of any wrongdoing. Under the terms of the order, the phone numbers of both parties on a call are handed over, as is location data, call duration, unique identifiers, and the time and duration of all calls. The FISA court order, signed by Judge Roger Vinson, compelled Verizon to produce to the NSA electronic copies of all call detail records or telephony metadata created by Verizon for communications between the United States and abroad or wholly within the United States. Again, according to The Guardian. So this could also be more than Verizon. And then you ask, what is the justification? What are the protections? If the document is genuine, it could represent the broadest surveillance order known to have been issued. It would also confirm long-standing suspicions of civil liberties advocates about the sweeping nature of U.S. surveillance through commercial carriers and under laws passed after the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. As the Washington Post reports, the order falls under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which authorizes the government to make broad demands on telephone carriers for information about calls. In this case, the order requires Verizon to provide ongoing daily information about all call detail records. This is a truly stunning revelation, said Elizabeth Goitein, co-director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. This suggests that the government has been compiling a comprehensive record of Americans' associations and possibly even their whereabouts. The Center for Constitutional Rights, which has sued the government over its surveillance practices, said in a statement Wednesday night that the order requires no level of suspicion and applies to all Verizon subscribers anywhere in the U.S. Former Vice President Al Gore tweeted, "In digital era, privacy must be a priority. Is it just me, or is secret blanket surveillance obscenely outrageous?" The business records order issued by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court does not require a showing of probable cause to believe that the targets are agents of a foreign power. Rather, all that is required is a showing that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the tangible things sought are, quote, relevant to an authorized investigation to obtain foreign intelligence information or to protect against international terrorism or clandestine intelligence activities. Tell me how all of the metadata of Americans' domestic conversations can be relevant to an authorized foreign intelligence or international terrorism investigation, said Goitein, who was counsel to then Senator Russell Feingold, a Senate Judiciary Committee member who left Congress in January 2011. It had been Feingold along with Senators Ron Wyden and Mark Udall, Democratic senators, who have raised concerns about the government's secret interpretation of Section 215. Wyden and Udall have been complaining about this for a couple years now. But about 12 to 18 hours later, Senator Dianne Feinstein of Democrat of California, who chairs the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, said the court order issued in April appears to be the exact 3-month renewal of the program that has been underway for the past 7 years. She said the program is lawful. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers, Republican, Michigan, said Thursday that the NSA program helped thwart a significant case of terrorism in the United States within the last few years. Rogers continued, within the last few years, this program was used to stop a terrorist attack in the United States. We know that it's important. It fills in a little seam that we have, and it's used to make sure that there's not an international nexus to any terrorism event if there may be one ongoing. So in that regard, it is a very valuable thing. Feinstein added, this is just metadata. There's no content involved. In other words, no content of a communication. Her comments echoed those of a senior Obama administration official who said Thursday morning that the order does not allow the government to listen in on anyone's telephone calls, but relates only to metadata, such as a telephone number or the length of a call. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican of South Carolina who is active on issues of foreign affairs and national security, voiced support for the program Thursday, saying it has proven effective in deterring terrorist activity. I'm a Verizon customer. I don't mind Verizon turning over records to the government if the government's going to try to match up a known terrorist phone with somebody in the United States, Graham told the Fox News channel. I'm glad that the activity is going on, but it is limited to tracking people who are suspected to be terrorists and who they may be talking to. Other matters. North and South Korea on Thursday agreed to hold their first government dialogue in years, raising hopes that they were moving toward a thaw in relations. These would be the first talks since 2008, I believe. North Korea proposed that the two Koreas discuss reopening the Kaesong Joint Industrial Complex. Health officials in Saudi Arabia are battling to halt the spread of a deadly SARS-like, what's known as a coronavirus, before millions of pilgrims arrive for the Hajj in October. This is a big story. This virus that I've mentioned before has now caused 30 deaths among 53 confirmed cases. 24 of the deaths out of 39 infections have been in Saudi Arabia. So picture if they don't get a handle on this, and the Saudis have not been cooperating well with the World Health Organization, and you have millions attending the Hajj from all over the world and then flying back. That's something I'm going to be following, sports fans. Alright, this issue really ticked me off big time, and it's related to the Obama-Xi Jinping summit. Michelle Obama is not going to attend. I've known this for a while, but Max Fisher of the Washington Post has some good comments. Understand that Michelle isn't going to be there while Xi's wife will be with him. And Michelle's excuse is that she needs to be home for her children's last week of school. It's total BS. It's a massive snub of the worst kind. And to me, just as her husband plays the American people like chumps and couldn't care less about you and me, which drives me up the wall when I see his likability poll number still above 50%. And now Michelle has adopted the same attitude, but in a critical moment for U.S.-China relations. So that's my opinion, but here's Max Fisher. This might seem, from the U.S. perspective, pretty banal. Of course, you wouldn't want to serve as a set piece at some humdrum summit meetings, but from the Chinese perspective, it's an unexpected snub, an affirmation of deeply held suspicions that Washington does not respect China, and perhaps most importantly, a relatively minor but unnecessary setback to the much-needed trust-building session before it's even begun. I totally agree with that. The two things to understand here are that Michelle Obama is a big star in China. Her presence at the summit was eagerly anticipated in the Chinese media and would have been a nice win for Xi. China still views itself as vulnerable and weak compared to the United States, which informs both its respect for the United States and its deep-seated insecurity about how China is viewed in Washington. Those two factors help explain why China watchers say that the First Lady's absence could offend both Xi and the many Chinese citizens watching the summit, which is, after all, the exact opposite of what the White House wants to accomplish. Again, totally agree with Mr. Fisher. A Chinese political scientist named Zhang Ming told the Independent newspaper, "First Lady diplomacy is also very important, and the U.S. side has failed to cooperate. According to normal diplomatic etiquette, this is very strange. It shouldn't be like this. Her absence would not go down very well in Beijing." But, yeah, we are freaking idiots. Just idiots. Thank God this man wasn't an idiot. Okay, here we are. This is a copy of a facsimile of the order to the troops. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in the free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened. He will fight savagely, but this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man-to-man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God. Sorry. Upon this great and noble undertaking, Dwight Eisenhower. Can you guess what that is? The top layer is sand from Omaha Beach, and the bottom layer is Utah. Picked it up in 1995. God bless America.